She saw the pictures and she painted them. She picked the colors.
It is with great pleasure that today I have as a guest the beautiful in and out Geraldina Wise. Talented, wise, kind, lives life out loud from a vulnerable spot, and which I so greatly appreciate and have appreciated since I met her. We are here today, and it must be Divine Mercy Hour because I have just heard an alarm, and I want to keep that in this because the Divine Mercy Hour is a big deal to me and to Geraldina. Thank you, Father. Thank you for this moment. A lot of what One of 11 Productions and the podcast is all about is due to Geraldina's inspiration. I don't know that she knows that. I met up with Geraldina recently. We were at a beautiful celebration, and Geraldina sat down and I said, "What have you been doing?" And Geraldina replied, "Oh my goodness, I've just had the most beautiful experience. I was invited to host, not in her beautiful gallery, but to host, I believe, at the Houston Food Bank, a gathering of unaccompanied minors. And she hosted a group of these children ages 10 to 16.
Correct.
And she said, well, I was invited to interact with them. I couldn't ask them their names. I couldn't ask where they lived. But I learned that they are very well taken care of. And in other words, they're not in cages. And I was able to share with them as an immigrant. This is such an important topic. It's a tender topic. And everyone thinks they know the story. I would love for you to share with us a little bit about these precious children, unaccompanied minors. And before we dive into that, I don't want to skip a little bit about your story, how you ended up here. So if you would share, I would be so appreciative.
Thank you, Carroll. First of all, thank you for having me and for trusting me. It takes two-way trust to be in these type of very intimate conversations. And I trust you. And I know you do too. So thank you for that. I think what we trust about each other is that we can talk in terms of abstract love. It's loving those who we don't know. It's taking care of the planet and of everything that we can for those who don't have names. And this opportunity that with the unaccompanied minors was jarring to me because I really did have to use my abstract love with children's faces in front of me. Not, like you said, not being able to interact too much, not being able to ask their names or where they're from. So very strange because that's the first thing I do, of course. And I do that because I'm an accidental immigrant myself. I come from the volcano in El Salvador, the San Salvador volcano. That's where I grew up. And at the tender age of 10, somehow, my mother knew that I had artistic talent. And she had heard about a student of Diego Rivera, the Mexican muralist, who had just arrived and needed work. And my mother went and deposited me in the ravines of the volcano in this very humble abode where she and her 3 children lived every Saturday from 8 to 12.
Wow.
And that went on until I got on the airplane to come to college to the United States.
Wow.
So every Saturday, my friends would be either sleeping in or, already planning their Saturdays. And I was painting in the ravines of the volcano with Violeta Bonilla was her name. I did not come to appreciate, number one, the incredible privilege that would mean for me until I decided to be a full-time artist some 12 years ago. And to know that I had knowledge well beyond what I could comprehend then, but I had it in me. it actually was the reason why I could understand that I carried knowledge much older than me. And that is one of the reasons I call myself a contemporary Maya artist. I am not indigenous. I do not speak the indigenous languages. I don't live in the indigenous places. I live in Houston, Texas, in a sea of concrete with shiny newness around me. And may I add, beautiful nature. The trees of Houston leave me thanking God every day. So you see, there is beauty here, and it's in the trees. The tree is a magical sign for the Maya people because trees are rooted in the ground from which all life comes from, but they elevate into the heavens. And so it is the perfect symbology for humans because we live in the here and in the there. We live in the now and in the when. So we are surrounded by those beautiful trees. And one of the things I thought about when I was at the Unaccompanied Minors conference was about telling them about the tree. Because everybody comes from trees, right? And I was able to tell them how beautiful the trees of Houston were and why trees were so symbolic for me through my Maya patrimony. It was an occasion where I had to contain all that love I had for them because I had been told you can't get close to them. And yet I figured out a way because when I asked them, but I have to make art with the children. They can't just hear about my art. They have to do some art. And I knew that would be the way to get closer and look into their eyes. So I pulled a Salvadorian and I disobeyed the rules. And I got close and I looked into the eyes of these children. And of course, it's complicated. They have heavy hearts. They have left a lot. The beauty about art is that art is an expression of what is inside each one of us. That's why art is so individualistic, both from the point of view of producing art and then from the point of view of looking at art. It's so individualistic. And there we were. Each one of them, I knew, were carrying heavy things inside their heart. So the first thing I said to them is, just paint what is in your hearts. And out came trees and suns and volcanoes and skies and rivers and oceans and fish. It was really pretty. It's very telling, Carol, of why I do art. That's what we carry in our hearts because we come from there. We come from the oceans and the earth and the sky and the air, and therefore we are at one with it if we only care to connect.
Something that you had shared with me, and I hope I remember it correctly, that as you were interacting and they were pushing the paint, a little girl asked you a question which was not against the rules. Didn't she ask you, are you from the volcano?
And she said, 2. And that was the key. Are you from the volcano? 2. So she was asking me, you're from El Salvador, aren't you? And when I looked into her eyes, I knew exactly what she was trying to ask. I said yes, and I look into her eyes, and by golly, if I don't find a little girl that looked exactly like me when I was 13 years old. And that blew any of the rules. I told you I broke some, but anything that they had put in front of me that I needed to obey, and I was trying to be obedient, and that just sent it all those walls breaking down because I could see that this is yet another immigrant that is coming into the country, that is making her first tracks, and that will have many, many tracks in this country. And who knows, she may be the next scientist to, make the next vaccine that we're going to need for humanity. We don't know. And that's one of the things I think that unites you and I. We know that each one of us has enormous potential. We know that we have to stay connected, both to the universe, to God, and to each other. My fourth connection is to the planet, which is the reason why I do art. Ultimately, it's about my abstract love for the generations that are to come that I don't know yet, that I may never get to know, but that I know that we need to leave the planet and those beautiful trees for them. And so that is that type of faith that we can do this, that we have the inner knowledge that we need to apply to this problem. This is the major problems of our time. It is an enormous task to bring the world together, bring the peoples together, no matter what their religion or faith or political thinking, in order to then make sure that we're going to ensure life on this planet.
I'm going to put a bookmark right there. I want to back up. That precious child who realized you too were from the volcano. I mean, I cannot imagine. She then felt even a deeper trust. She realized, oh my goodness, I have an opportunity. What if I am following in this beautiful artist's path? What if I'm following her tracks? This is an example. I can be okay here in America. There are people that care and that have done great things, correct?
But isn't that the truth?
That's what I'm talking about.
We seem to get confused about that. I'm not confused about that. Americans are the most generous human beings on earth. I'm not confused about that. I'm not confused about the fact that we care deeply about humanity. We just get disconnected and confused.
What I love about what you share is that it touches all ages, all people. We are one and the same. And what we choose to do and how we affect the earth and how we affect one another's energy and the examples, the tracks that we decide to put down, they are affecting generations to come. Whether that be through, do we trust one another? Are we educating through stories so people can ask new and better questions? Everything about that interaction for me has such importance. Who had enough sense to call you to do this?
I was about to say that.
Who in the world thought of that?
Well, she has a name. Her name is Glenda.
Glenda.
And I will tell you, Glenda somehow put these dots together. And how did Glenda know that art would be the way to get to the heart of these children? Art could guide them. Art could be the one where we could ask the tough questions. The tough questions. What are you going to do in your life? Right? We have no censure when it comes to asking, a little cousin or a little nephew, so what do you think you're going to be when you grow up? Well, I wasn't about to ask that of these children. On the other hand, by showing them my tracks and them being in the art world, I could particularly touch them in that, so anything is a possibility because of the empathy that art creates among people. Why do I do art? It's because it's an empathetic platform.
Well, and what I love about not just that it's an empathetic platform, especially your art and abstract art, everyone becomes curious. And it's an individual, what it means to them. And that conversation, which I believe in conversation and curiosity being a way for people to heal and converse, and there's more understanding, more empathy.
More empathy.
It's
There
just
you go.
Bottom line.
Can we use more empathy?
Dear
Every
God.
day in every way. And can we use more art every day in every way. I even heard a podcast in which the psychologist was saying, just add more feeds in your Instagram to art so that when you wake up, you look at art. And I thought, I never would have gone that far, but she's not wrong. Of course, my feed is full of art because I'm connected to a lot of artists. So, but she's not wrong that I get inspired every day. Carroll, it takes courage.
Oh, yeah.
It takes courage to do art. It takes courage to speak up. What you're doing takes courage. Because
Selfishly, I love it.
well, wait a minute. Selfishly, I live for it.
There you go.
So, but that I don't consider that selfish. I consider that committed
Right.
and courageous. I told you before, it is a total transference of my energy.
Right.
And because my energy is connected to the energy of the world, it's the world in each piece of art.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
So that's why art is for everybody. Art is needed for every well-being, every brain, every person deserves to be exposed to art, to get to be touched by art, to have art accessible to them, be it in their schools or in their local libraries or their museums, and be able to go often and free. All that matters. Art is a safe place.
Should be.
I will repeat it. Art is a safe place. That's why you're advocating that every child and every adult should have a place, a way, a time to make art where there's no right or wrong, where there's no judgment. Sure, there's people with talent, but let me tell you, some people with uber talent don't make it as artists. So it's really, being an artist is it's a whole different, it's a profession.
Yes.
And it takes enormous amount of not only talent, but work ethic, of being curious, of research. It's rigorous. Being an artist is rigorous. I have been asked 1,000,000 times, well, did you do art today? I said, yes, I was at my studio all day. Oh, lucky you. You must be so relaxed.
Right.
Oh my goodness. It's the furthest thing from that. It is intense. And I go home to truly just try to get some of that intensity out and prepare for the next day of intensity. It is not for the faint of heart. And the other thing about being an artist is that it takes enormous amount of self-confidence that you have to find in places that are not the usual. And that's a whole other conversation.
I can't wait till we have the spirit conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you have to find where you're going to find your courage from. And where do you find yourself constantly? Because day after day, you're not having a critic talk about your beautiful art or how important you are. You don't have that. Weeks, months, years go by without one of those things. But I'll tell you, it makes you stronger.
Oh, yeah.
And it makes you convicted. In other words, if you believe that you are an artist and you have chosen this for you, then you are going to work it. And you're not going to be waiting for somebody to give you permission. I don't ask permission.
Right.
But I did have to find out, was this for me?
You had to make a decision.
Yes. Because for me, it was for life.
Is there anything regarding tracks and or these precious unaccompanied minors from that experience that you want to make sure everyone takes away, keeps in their heart?
It is possibly why I do art, which is to connect dots that are usually not connected. In the using the tracks analogy, and we'll see it when we see the paintings, is that those tracks that I kept drawing as doodles, and then I decided to put as art. I understood what I was drawing mindlessly so many of those times. And it was that we are dichotomies. We are living complexities, that we are from here and from there, that we have multiple realities. And that's who we are. That's the authentic self. It's not a simple self. And that's a big realization of how to look at people and not judge. You know, knowing there's more to people than you ever will know. So on the people track, right, we are living each one our own tracks. On the more global aspect of this, which is the connecting of the dots I was speaking about, it's that as humans, we are leaving tracks on the planet. And it is those collective tracks that we have mindlessly, there's the word again, gone through, that we are at the brink of questioning if life can continue on the planet. And we shouldn't be here. We shouldn't be at this edge. We should be very mindful of the tracks that we are each living through, that we are each leaving on the planet. So it really comes down to the fact that we are the planet. We are one with the planet. We come from the planet. We come from the universe. So this idea that we have to create empathy about it, well, let's do it through art. That's what I do. But really, we should be well beyond that, because we should understand we come from the planet. Therefore, if the planet withers away, life on the planet withers away. We are symbiotic with the planet. We are the planet.
Okay, well, you know how you always go so deep and you're so brilliant. I cannot wait to talk more and ask so many more questions. Just multiple realities. We just have to have an entire conversation about that because it's the truth. Awareness. Thank you for helping and sharing the word. Let's be aware. Sure, let's be empathetic, but let's be accountable and appreciative of the planet. And let's be appreciative for the generations to come, or let's be responsible on their behalf.
Yes.
We leave our tracks in the sound